creative director of Bitmoji, one of America's most popular apps, Blackstock.
All right, Ba, lie down. You tell me about your mother and the way she made you feel as a child. You know, to yourself. It's exciting to be here with you. I think you have some slides that you want to present to tell your story. Oh, who are those incredibly handsome guys that you're about to show us? But we want to talk about the power of the avatar in our world, and it aligns directly with the growth of your company. I like to think of two big things happened in 2007. The iPhone was introduced to the world, and you had this sparkling idea that somehow one day we would be communicating through digital avatars with one another. So why don't you tell us very quickly, because we want to get to the meat of it, about the last 11 years.
Okay, sure. Thanks, John. I'm an animator, a cartoonist. I grew up making comics and cartoons. My favorite thing was to share comics with my friends, and especially putting my friends in those comics, and got a lot of joy out of that, and basically thought, you know, where Bitstrips and Bitmoji started was, can we share that joy with the world? Right. And then we realized if we put the language of cartoons in everyone's hands, this could have revolutionary ramifications. So Bitmoji, basically, it turns you into this living, breathing cartoon character that you can use to express yourself in ways that you can't with just text. Mm-hmm. You know, here's an example of what a Bitmoji looks like and how even the same word with different facial expressions can take on an entirely different meaning.
The subtleties of language and cue and nuance and so forth.
Exactly. So when you make a Bitmoji, it's really this incarnation, this embodiment of your identity and your personality. It has this massive range of emotions and expressions, and it basically makes you the medium of your expression as it is in the physical world. We've been evolving over the last 11 years. This shows like, you know, we've evolved the avatar from like original monster style up to what we just launched a couple months ago, Bitmoji Deluxe. And now with our integration in Snapchat, we're expanding the use of the avatar into all kinds of crazy new things. So we're putting your avatar and all your friends on a map. We're putting you into augmented reality, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. So really fun stuff.
It's exciting stuff, and I know that everyone here knows what this app is. The wild popularity of your product sometimes, I think, obscures some of the fundamental learnings about how we communicate now. It is a language. I think the introduction was totally apt. At what point when you were starting this, was it from the very get-go or along the line, did you realize that you were creating a language that facilitated conversation among people, among users?
Good question. I think, you know, it was really like, with any product, you have to use it yourself to find out if it's going to work. And, you know, Bitstrips, we started with like a comic making site, and it evolved through a lot of different products to become Bitmoji. And when we were creating Bitmoji, we wanted to improve on emojis and stickers by putting you back into your conversation. And as we were using it amongst ourselves in our team, we were instantly hooked on it, and we knew like, oh, this is actually improving how we communicate in what we're doing. So we knew.
Well, what were those initial conversations like? What made it easier? At what point did you realize, oh, this is something that might have begun as a curiosity of sorts, or you know, a version of one product? At what point did you realize, oh, this is something that's going to have wide applications beyond just a peer group of people working together in an office? It can do a lot more in ways that you never expected.
Sure. I think it was, you know, as we developed our products and developed this avatar, we really started to realize that it was an inevitability that people, as in a like increasingly digital world merging with the physical world, that people are going to need some version of themselves to exist in that world. So they're not just like a string of text or even a collection of images. They have an embodiment that conveys their identity and their personality. Because when people communicate, it's not just what you're saying, but it's it's the face that your words are coming out of that's equally important. So we wanted to put that back into it.
One of the things that I admire very much about you is that we're living in a time with where there's a lot of techno-skepticism, for lack of a better word, and I find that your outlook is very refreshing. Your perspective is very optimistic. We had a conversation the other day where you thoroughly convinced me that the importance of the avatar is almost primal moving forward, because given the world that we're inhabiting and the increasing techno ubiquity that we're facing, that this is really going to allow a certain form of expression on a widespread level that doesn't exist now. Will you sort of just lay out for the audience your grand thesis about where avatars are going, how they're going to make the world a better place, and how they're going to make life easier for people?
Sure. So basically, we're in a world where you've got the physical world and the digital world, and these are increasingly becoming not separate things. They're merging together. It's like when I see my friends, 90% of my interactions with my friends are on my phone, and vice versa. And so, if this is where we live, then it's really important that we can exist there in a way that feels human. And cartoon is this amazing language where it really, distills meaning into a single image. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. When that picture is you, it's worth even more, because, I send my mom a Bitmoji, she picks up her phone and she sees me.
Right.
That's super valuable. And when she sends me one back, it's like we're in this space together.
But so someone might argue, just to play the devil's advocate, that we shouldn't be here as much. That we should be focused on withdrawing from technology, and that making a more addictive product that facilitates it could be a bad thing. What's your sort of perspective about that?
I think it's technology is just. It's more and more part of our lives. It's really impossible to separate it out. And, our approach is like, if that's really an inevitable way that things are going, it's really important to breathe life into it and bring joy into it and make it entertaining and make it more personal. And, if you look around and you look at what's happening, technology, politics, everything, it's clear we're living in a cartoon world. So we might as well be cartoons. And if you're going to be a cartoon, it's got to be good.
Right. You're both, a co-founder, the CEO, but you're also an addicted user of the product. How do you sort of, what are you trying to test all the time? In what ways does the current technology frustrate you? And also, how have your own relationships benefited from this, from the core product? You mentioned, we were on the phone the other day, how it helped you in one particular relationship. Maybe you'd be comfortable sharing a little bit more about that on stage in front of a lot of strangers?
Sure. Bitmoji is really great for long distance relationships because, like I said, you are seeing the other person. You're not just seeing their text, and you're not just seeing like a winky emoji. Right. You're seeing them winking at you, and you have an emotional connection through your interaction that really makes life better.
You showed some of the forthcoming iterations on the screen before. Give us a sense of where you're trying to push the technology. In what sort of unexpected ways are we going to see Bitmojis interacting on our screens?
Sure. So the main use so far of Bitmoji has been communication and self-expression. But if you think about us going into a world where we're having more and more variety of digital experiences, in the real world, in the physical world, you are the kind of connective glue between all your experiences. Whether you're looking in the mirror or riding a roller coaster or having a meal, you are the continuity there. So with an avatar, we're bringing that experience into the digital world, where you have this continuous existence that goes through all those experiences. And when you start to think about it that way, you can imagine virtually any experience you're having online, whether it's checking the weather or talking to a friend, you add an avatar to that, and it becomes a more personal and more fun experience that's going to make you smile more.
Without giving up any of your trade secrets or patents, where do you see the product going in a world that's increasingly focused on augmented reality and virtual reality?
So we've already been doing some really cool stuff with augmented reality. If you have Snapchat, you can connect your avatar to there, and you can see yourself, dancing in front of you anywhere you are.
Right.
I think in virtual reality, it's going to be equally, if not more important, that people have, a representation of themselves and a true representation of themselves, not like, oh, I'm going to go into Second Life and become a robot vampire rabbit.
Yeah.
I want to be me. I want to convey myself and share myself. So
I want to talk more about Snap in a second and what it's like to go from being a startup to being owned by a publicly traded company. But in the meantime, I wonder, as you look at your audience, where are you growing the most? I know you're capping it at 13, and I'm sure that people are, that Zs or whatever you call Z pluses, whatever that generation is, that they come into the world fully formed, waiting for their Bitmoji avatar.
yeah.
Do you experience widespread adoption among baby boomers? Is there a core demo that we'd be surprised that is an adapter?
Yeah, cartoon is a universal language that everybody understands.
Right.
Everyone can read it, and so it's
But
really.
tech isn't always a universal language for some people who are coming. You mentioned your mom.
No,
Your
but
mom is probably not
that's-
somebody who spends all day at the App Store.
That's the amazing thing. Like I've probably talked to 10 people at this conference in the last couple of days who tell me how much their moms, their like 70-year-old moms, love Bitmoji, and they're sharing. So it's cross-generational.
That is true. I can attest. It is very mom-friendly in my
Parents love
life
it
too. Yeah.
And I think it's that thing where they're seeing you, and it's like it gives you this emotional connection. And from there, we just started releasing international Bitmojis. So
Right.
now there's Bitmojis in German, French, Spanish. So we know that like everywhere in the world, people love cartoons. So we're giving it to them.
Is there anywhere that there's surprisingly significant growth that you can share?
It's just
Sector
like
or country? I'm just curious.
nothing too specific. I mean, what's been surprising to us, well, not so surprising, but exciting, is the way that it's grown in North America just over the last couple of years. It's been massive.
Your story, to take a step back, is an interesting one because you're Canadian. You're the Toronto startup guy, and you had this sort of reverse Sand Hill Road experience where you had something cool. You got some money to continue the runway. You launched the Dream app that went right to #1 in the App Store. It's when people a generation ago used to say, "Oh, just come up with a hot app and it'll all be okay." You actually did that, and then Sand Hill Road came to you.
Yeah.
When you were being reverse pitched, did you ever think that the company was going to turn into this sort of behemoth, this international success?
Oh
that it
yeah.
is?
I mean, this was the plan from the beginning. You have to believe that, otherwise it's hard to keep going through the dark times. So it was really exciting at the time. We went from literally in the space of 3 months from like beating down doors in Sand Hill Road to firms flying to our office in Toronto, which was pretty cool.
And you're owned by Snap. I want to ask you first what it's like to be part of a large publicly traded company, but also you're still in Toronto, right? The base of operations is still in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
How easy has it been to maintain the culture now that you're sort of a large business unit of a huge business?
It's great that we've stayed in Toronto. Toronto's a real animation town. There's a lot of amazing talent there, both engineers and artists. We have a really distinct and strong culture in our company because we're all about imagination and creativity. We live and breathe cartoons, and we all try to do stuff that's making our team laugh every day, all the time. Right. And it's important to have that kind of vibe to put it into the work, to spread that out to the rest of the world.
I'm sure it's a relief now that you're owned by a large company that you don't have to worry about things like office space or the cloud supplies or healthcare for employees. What's that freed you up to do that you weren't doing in your previous life as a full-fledged entrepreneur?
Well, like I was saying before, when you think about like all the cool things you could do with an avatar, your imagination starts to run wild. And when we were, still a very small startup in survival mode, we had to we could only do one thing at a time. And so there's a lot of pressure to make sure that that one thing you're doing is the absolute most important thing that you can do.
Right.
Now, we still have that mentality. We're still, really want to make sure that everything we're doing is the most impactful thing we can do. But now, as part of Snap, we've been able to grow our team, and we've been able to branch out and start realizing all those crazy avatar dreams and thinking about what are the wildest things we can do with a world where everyone exists as one of these cartoon characters.
Is the core mission of the company that people are going to communicate differently? Is that something that impacts you as you plot out what the next 5 years of you guys look like?
How do you mean?
Visual communication seems like Snap is fundamentally rooted in the belief that millennials are going to communicate differently, and they're going to really disrupt how adults, which is what they are right now, are going to communicate with one another. Is that part of your core mission too? You began as a cool way to interact online on a phone, but do you have loftier goals for how to really disrupt that, on a global level?
Sure. I mean, our mission has always been to basically give everyone in the world this visual identity that lets them express themselves in ways that they can't with just words. It's one of the reasons that it made sense for us to join forces with Snap, because Snap's all about visual communication, creativity, self-expression. We're in a world where technology is giving people more and more options for how they want to communicate and how they want to express themselves. And we've always really, really strongly believed that the language of cartoon is one of the most powerful ways to communicate. And we're now able to explore that idea in all these different ways.
Last question for you. One of the things that keeps people in your position up at night is that things change fast now, user habits change. As we just saw from the previous panel, the devices that they connect through are going to change too, and who knows what's next. What keeps you up at night?
Insomnia.
We should talk about that afterwards.
Yeah. To be honest, what keeps me up at night is excitement, because I'm so excited about the stuff that we're working on right now. I don't worry about this going away. If you go to a cave in France somewhere, you'll find paintings on the walls that are, 100,000 years old. Cartoon is forever. It's not going anywhere, and we're just trying to give people the best possible version of that in their hands.
Cartoon is forever. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, John.
Congratulations.